Emily Turner spent most Sundays in the quiet comfort of her small Portland home, where soft music played in the background and the scent of fresh coffee filled the air. It was her weekly ritual, one peaceful day where she didn't have to think about deadlines, responsibilities, or the complicated memories she kept tucked away. She had built a calm, steady life at 38, one that protected her heart more than it challenged it. After a painful breakup years earlier, she taught herself to avoid anything that felt too emotional or unpredictable. That afternoon, she was arranging some books on her shelf when she heard a familiar voice calling from the door, "Aunt Emily, you home?" It was her nephew, Noah, 20 years old, always curious, always carrying a mix of energy and nerves. She smiled, glad to see him, because he had a way of brightening her house without even trying. "You didn't text you were coming," she said, opening the door wider. "Everything okay?" Noah stepped inside, holding a notebook and wearing the expression of someone who needed something but didn't know how to ask. Yeah, everything's fine. I need help." Emily raised an eyebrow. "Homework again? Because last time I helped you, you nearly turned in my entire report instead of yours." He laughed, though it didn't hide the worry in his eyes. "No, not homework. This is different. It's about love." Emily froze for half a second. She didn't expect that word to walk into her calm afternoon. She set the book down and crossed her arms lightly. Love. That can mean a lot of things. What's going on? He took a deep breath. "There's a charity event at my university. They want students to create short messages about love, real stories, real feelings, something meaningful. And I volunteered to help." He hesitated, then added, "But I told them I knew someone who could guide me. Someone who understands love. Deeply." Emily stared at him, caught between confusion and a slow, gentle ache she didn't want to acknowledge. "Noah," she said softly, "you know my history. I'm not exactly the right person to talk about love." "Exactly," he replied. "You've lived it. You've experienced heartbreak. You've learned from it. That's real. That's what they want." Emily shook her head. "But why me? You could ask anyone. Your friends, your professors." "No," he said firmly. "I trust you. You always explain things in a way that makes sense. And honestly," his voice lowered, "I think you avoid talking about love because you think it's behind you. But it's not. You still care about things deeply. You still feel things even if you don't talk about them." His words hit her unexpectedly. She had spent years hiding her emotions behind routines and small responsibilities. She didn't think anyone noticed, especially not Noah. But here he was grown, observant, and seeing through her calm surface. Emily tried to brush it off with a joke. "So what you're saying is you want me to open up emotionally just so you can finish an assignment?" He rolled his eyes and laughed. "Not exactly. I just need you to help me write something honest. Something that actually means something. And yes, I want you to do it." Emily walked to the kitchen counter and poured herself a glass of water, partly because she needed a moment to breathe. Talking about love was complicated enough when it stayed trapped in her thoughts. Saying it out loud for a crowd, even harder. She glanced at Noah Young, hopeful, earnest. He didn't know her whole story, but he knew enough to believe she could help. "What exactly would I need to do?" She finally asked. Noah brightened immediately. "Just help me prepare the message. You can write it, or we can write it together. And then they want us to present it at the event next week." Emily raised her eyebrows. "We present?" "Yeah, they love when families participate. They think it makes the message stronger." Emily sighed, not from annoyance, but from the weight of a choice that felt bigger than the request. Helping Noah wasn't the problem. Facing her own emotions while doing it, that was the real challenge. "Please," he said quietly, "I really want to do well. And I don't think I can do this without you." Emily looked at him for a long moment. She saw not just her nephew, but a young man trying to understand the world, trying to make sense of something everyone struggles with. She felt a soft tug at her heart, gentle, familiar, impossible to ignore. Finally, she nodded. "All right, I'll help." Noah's relief was immediate. "Really?" "Yes," she said, though her voice carried a hint of hesitation. "But only if you promise not to tell anyone." I agreed this quickly. He grinned. "Deal." He opened his notebook and sat on the couch, already excited. "So, where do we start? Should we talk about your experience? Or maybe something you've learned?" Emily sat beside him slowly, still unsure if she was making a simple decision or walking into something she wasn't prepared for. "Let's start with the basics," she said. "What does love mean to you?" Noah thought for a moment. "I think love is when someone makes you feel safe. When they listen, when they don't judge you." Emily nodded. "That's good. Simple, honest. People will connect with that." "And what about you?" he asked quietly. "What does love mean to you?" The question froze her again. Memories she tried to lock away drifted back, warm smiles, long conversations, promises that once felt unbreakable. She pushed them aside gently. "Love," she said after a moment, "is choosing someone even when life becomes complicated. It's not about perfection. It's about care, understanding, patience." Noah wrote quickly, absorbing every word. Emily watched him, realizing that helping him might force her to confront feelings she believed were long gone. She didn't know if she was ready for that. But she also didn't want to hold her nephew back. They spent the next hour brainstorming ideas, shaping sentences, and discussing themes. Noah was focused and thoughtful, and Emily found herself surprised by how natural the conversation felt. It had been years since she talked about love so openly. She felt a strange mix of heaviness and relief, like the door to an old room had cracked open. Letting in fresh air as they wrapped up, Noah gathered his things. "Thank you, Aunt Emily. Really, I knew you'd help." She smiled, though something inside her felt unsettled. "You're welcome. We'll keep working on it." Before he left, he paused at the door. "This is good for you too, you know." Emily frowned playfully. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means," he said with a grin, "you're great at talking about love, even if you pretend you're not." And with that, he left. Emily closed the door and leaned against it, letting out a slow breath. She thought she was helping her nephew with a simple school project. She didn't realize she had also taken the first step into a past. She thought she had buried and a future she didn't know was waiting. The next week arrived faster than Emily expected. One moment she and Noah were shaping gentle sentences about love at her kitchen table. And the next, she was walking through the doors of the University Events Center with him. The air inside buzzed with the sound of students moving tables, testing microphones, and hanging soft string lights. Everything looked warm and welcoming, but Emily felt her heart beating harder than she wanted to admit. She wasn't used to being around big crowds anymore, especially not crowds discussing topics she spent years avoiding. Noah seemed to sense her tension and gave her an encouraging smile. "It'll be fine. We'll finish the script and show it to the coordinator. 10 minutes tops." Emily forced a small nod. "Good. The quicker, the better." She followed him through the busy room, trying to blend in, trying not to look nervous. As she scanned the space, her eyes unexpectedly landed on someone standing near the front of the hall. Her breath caught instantly, the world slowing down around her as recognition washed through her like a sudden wave. There he was, Michael Hayes. Her past, her almost future, the man she once believed she would marry. He was standing with a clipboard giving instructions to a group of volunteers. His voice carried the same calm confidence she once loved. His hair was a little shorter, his jawline a little sharper, but those gentle eyes, still soft, still familiar, had not changed. Emily froze in place. No one noticed her sudden stillness. "Aunt Emily, you good?" She couldn't speak. She couldn't move. She could only stare at the man she never thought she'd see again. At that exact moment, Michael turned. As if drawn by some invisible pull, his eyes lifted and met hers. His expression shifted instantly. Shock, surprise, something deeper, maybe disbelief, flashed across his face. He stepped toward her slowly, like he wasn't sure if she was real. "Emily," he said quietly, almost breathless. Hearing her name in his voice again hit her in a place she had carefully locked away. She forced herself to stand straighter. Michael. Noah frowned, confused. You two know each other. Emily answered before the moment became heavier. We used to, a long time ago. Michael gave a small, gentle smile that carried more history than 1,000 words could hold. It's been years, he said softly. I didn't expect to see you here. Emily wasn't ready to talk about the past, so she grabbed on to the first explanation she could give. I'm just helping my nephew with the message he's preparing. Michael nodded. Right? The message on love presentations. I'm organizing the whole thing this year. He tried to appear composed, but his eyes kept studying her face, like he was trying to catch up on everything he had missed. Emily swallowed hard. Of course you are. He gave a small laugh. I guess some things don't change. Amelie didn't want to fall into old patterns. Not now. Not in front of her nephew. Not when she came here with a simple goal and a carefully protected heart. So, Michael continued, turning to Noah with warm professionalism. You're Emily's nephew. That makes you lucky. He smiled kindly. She's always had a way with words. Emily felt her stomach tighten. She didn't expect him to remember that. She didn't expect him to remember anything at all. Noah glanced between them, sensing something he didn't understand. She helps me a lot. I told her she's basically my secret weapon. Michael looked at Emily again, this time with something softer in his eyes. She's always been someone people can count on. Emily stiffened slightly, not wanting the past to open up here, in front of lights and strangers. We should show you the script, she said, keeping her voice steady. We'd like your feedback. Michael nodded in a way that felt both professional and personal. Of course, come with me. He led them to a quieter corner of the hall. Emily handed him the notebook, and he read quickly, thoughtfully, the way he always used to read everything she wrote. His expression softened as he turned each page. This is beautiful, he said finally. Honest and simple. It's exactly what this event needs. Noah smiled proudly. We worked together, but she wrote most of it. Michael looked at Emily with a warmth that pierced through the walls she had built. I can tell. Emily looked away, pretending to adjust her bag. She wasn't ready for this. She wasn't ready for the familiarity in his voice, the way he spoke as if no time had passed, as they moved on to discuss the presentation details. Emily felt the weight of memories, rising memories of late-night conversations, rainy walks, promises whispered softly. She never imagined she would stand next to him again. Not after the way their lives had drifted apart. She remembered the final days of their relationship, him chasing one dream, her chasing stability, both of them too stubborn, too young to compromise. They didn't break up out of anger. They broke up out of fear that wanting different things meant losing everything. And now he was here, standing close enough she could hear the familiar rhythm of his breathing. Noah suddenly nudged her lightly. Aunt Emily, you okay? You look pale. Emily pulled herself together. I'm fine. Just tired. Michael, as if sensing her discomfort, spoke gently. We can continue this later if you want. No pressure. Oh, she said quickly, then softened her tone. I mean, we're already here. Let's finish. He nodded respectfully, careful not to overstep. They walked through the event schedule, the lighting plan, and the format of the presentations. Every time Michael spoke, Emily felt a quiet tension build inside her. Not bad, not painful, just unexpected. She had grown used to silence, to routine, to protecting her heart. Being here with him stirred emotions she thought she no longer carried. At one point, while Noah was busy checking a microphone, Michael leaned closer. It's really good to see you, Emily. Honestly. Emily's breath caught. She kept her voice calm. Life takes people in strange directions. Michael nodded. It does. But sometimes it brings them back. She didn't respond. She couldn't. Instead, she stepped back, giving herself space. A moment later, Noah returned, cheerful and excited. We're all set. Aunt Emily, thank you. This is going to be great. She smiled at him, grateful for the distraction. I'm glad. Michael watched her with quiet eyes. Not demanding, not pushing, just noticing. The way he always noticed everything. As they prepared to leave, he said softly, "Emily, if you need anything for the presentation, or if you want to go over the script again, I'm here." Emily nodded politely. "Thank you." But inside, she felt the ground beneath her shift. She came here to help her nephew. She didn't expect to face the past she had spent years avoiding. She didn't expect to see the man who once held her. Whole heart, and she definitely didn't expect old feelings to return. With such quiet force, but they did. And this was only the beginning. After the initial surprise of seeing Michael again, Emily tried to focus on the task at hand. The charity event's preparations were moving swiftly, and she had promised Noah she would help him complete the message on love. Yet every time she spoke to Michael, a wave of old emotions returned, subtle but undeniable. She wasn't used to letting her heart flutter in such a gentle, mature way, and the realization made her both nervous and curious. The next few days passed quickly, filled with a rhythm of planning, writing, and rehearsing. Emily met Michael several times at the university hall, sometimes accompanied by Noah, sometimes alone. Each interaction brought memories she hadn't revisited in years. She remembered how patient he had been in college, the way he listened without judgment. The little gestures that made her feel safe and understood. Seeing that same calm maturity in him now unsettled her. She didn't want to admit it, but she missed it more than she expected. Michael, on his part, seemed equally aware of their shared history. He never pushed or pried. He kept the conversations professional, warm, and thoughtful. But there was an undeniable connection between them that both had to navigate carefully. One afternoon, while reviewing Noah's draft in the quiet corner of the hall, Michael glanced at Emily and said, "You still have a way with words. I can tell when someone is speaking from the heart." Emily felt her cheeks warm. "I write what I feel," she said softly, careful not to let her voice betray more than she intended. "Sometimes it's easier to write than to speak." "Maybe," Michael said, his gaze lingering just enough to make her heart skip a beat. "But speaking is important too, especially when it comes to love." She looked down at the paper in her hands, unsure how to respond. She had spent years avoiding speaking about love, fearing vulnerability. Yet here he was, calmly, respectfully drawing it out of her. Noah, oblivious to the tension in the air, interjected with excitement. "I think we should focus on the presentation style too. Maybe use visuals or a small story to connect with the audience." Emily smiled at him. "Good idea, Noah. That will make it more engaging." As they discussed the details, Emily realized that working with Michael again didn't feel as threatening as she had imagined. Instead, it felt comforting. The conversations were natural, effortless. They shared quiet moments of laughter and reflection, and she discovered that the person standing before her was no longer the young man she once knew. He had grown into someone thoughtful, steady, and gentle. Yet beneath the calm exterior, Emily sensed the same warmth, the same quiet understanding that had once drawn her to him. One evening, after most students had left, Emily stayed behind to finalize some details for the presentation. Michael appeared moments later as if he had sensed she would need guidance. "Need help?" he asked. She shook her head, smiling softly. "I think I'm okay. Just adding some finishing touches." He nodded and leaned slightly against the wall, observing her as she worked. "It's strange," he said quietly, "seeing you again. It brings back a lot of memories." Emily paused, pen in hand, feeling a lump in her throat. Memories of their past, of conversations late into the night, of dreams shared and promises whispered, all resurfaced in vivid clarity. She had avoided them for so long, fearing the vulnerability they would bring. Yet now, standing here with him nearby, she realized how much she had missed the simple comfort of his presence. "Life has a way of surprising us," she said softly, keeping her voice even. "We don't expect certain people to reappear." Michael smiled faintly. "True, and yet here we are." A silence fell between them, not awkward, but charged with unspoken thoughts. Emily felt her heartbeat quicken. She had spent so long protecting herself, building walls around her heart. Yet here was someone who had once known her completely and still seemed to understand her, even after all this time. Noah, entering the room with a cheerful grin, broke the quiet. "Everything good here? We're almost ready for rehearsal." Emily nodded, grateful for the interruption. "Yes, everything's good." As they moved toward the rehearsal area, Michael stayed close, guiding her gently through the logistics. "You've got a calm presence," he said quietly. "It will help the audience connect with the message." Emily's lips curved into a small, thoughtful smile. "I hope so. I just want Noah's message to feel real, not rehearsed." Michael glanced at her, something unspoken in his eyes. "It will, because you're part of it, and that makes it real." Her heart warmed at his words, but she quickly diverted her attention back to the presentation materials. She didn't want to linger on the emotions he stirred. They were complicated, delicate, and far from easy to manage. Over the next several days, Emily and Michael spent more time together in preparation. Each conversation, each shared laugh, each moment of collaboration chipped away at the distance that years had built between them. They talked about what love meant, not in grand, sweeping gestures, but in simple, everyday truths: patience, understanding, kindness, and resilience. Emily found herself opening up in ways she hadn't in years, trusting him with her thoughts without fear of judgment. One evening, while reviewing the final draft of Noah's script, Michael spoke softly, almost hesitantly. "Emily, I want to apologize for the way things ended all those years ago. I wasn't ready for the kind of love we shared. I wasn't brave enough." Emily paused, feeling the words settle in her chest. She had never expected this moment, him admitting regret, acknowledging their shared past without blame or anger. "We were young," she said quietly. "We both made choices we thought were right at the time." He nodded. "I know, but if life ever gives us a second chance, I don't want to waste it." Her heart skipped a beat, a mix of hope and fear swirling inside her. She had spent so long avoiding the possibility of a future with him, believing that what they once had was gone forever. Yet hearing him speak honestly, without pressure, without expectation, stirred something inside her she thought had vanished. Before she could respond, Noah entered again, full of energy and pride. "Aunt Emily, the rehearsal is tomorrow. Everything looks perfect." Emily smiled at her nephew, feeling both joy and the weight of her own emotions. She realized that what had started as a simple act of helping Noah with a project had grown into something far more meaningful. Not only was she guiding her nephew, but she was also reconnecting with a part of herself she had long ignored, a part that still believed in love, in trust, and in second chances. As the day ended, Emily left the university hall with a quiet sense of anticipation. The event was approaching, the message was nearly complete, and her heart felt a mixture of nerves and hope. Michael's presence lingered in her thoughts, steady, familiar. She found herself wondering if this unexpected reunion could become more than just a collaboration for a charity event. Walking home, she thought about how strange life could be. One small request from a nephew had brought her back into contact with someone she had loved deeply. One simple project had opened doors she thought were closed forever. She didn't know what the future held, but she felt for the first time in years a quiet excitement to anticipation of what might be possible if she allowed herself to feel again. By the end of the week, Emily realized that she was no longer simply helping Noah with a school project. She was rediscovering trust, opening her heart carefully, and reconnecting with someone who had always understood her in ways no one else had. And somewhere deep inside, she knew that this experience, this gentle, emotional reconnection, was just the beginning of a journey she hadn't expected but was ready to embrace. The past had returned, soft and quiet, yet undeniable, and Emily could feel that the next chapter of her life was waiting, full of possibilities she hadn't dared imagine until now. The day of the charity event arrived with a quiet excitement that filled the university hall. Warm lights glimmered across the room, soft music played in the background, and students moved quickly to adjust decorations and seating. Emily felt a mix of nerves and anticipation as she stepped inside with Noah, She could see the nervous energy in her nephew's eyes, but he was beaming with excitement. Holding the notebook they had worked on together, Emily tried to steady her own racing heart. She had spent the past week preparing, rehearsing quietly, and navigating her complicated feelings around Michael. Now, standing in the event hall, she realized that this was more than just a simple presentation. It was a moment of truth, a chance to show emotion, honesty, and courage in front of a crowd. Something she hadn't done in years. Noah grabbed her hand briefly. "Don't worry, Aunt Emily, you've got this. The message is amazing, and everyone's going to feel it." Emily smiled at him, feeling a surge of warmth. "Thank you, Noah. That means a lot." She glanced across the hall and spotted Michael supervising the volunteers. His presence was steady, reassuring, and familiar all at once. Every time their eyes met, she felt a soft tug inside her chest. She realized that despite all the years and distance, some connections never really faded. They simply waited for the right moment to return. When it was finally their turn to present, Emily took a deep breath. She carried the notebook onto the small stage and felt the gaze of the audience, students, teachers, and families settle on her. The lights were gentle, the room warm, but her heart pounded with a quiet mix of fear and excitement. She reminded herself that this was for Noah, for his project, for the message they had worked on together. But as she looked at the crowd, she realized it was also for her a chance to speak from her heart again. Emily opened the notebook and began to read. Her voice was calm at first, steady, and then it softened, carrying the sincerity of years lived and lessons learned. She spoke of love not as an abstract idea, but as something tangible, something that required patience, understanding, and courage. She described love as choosing someone even when life becomes complicated, as forgiving, growing, and believing in second chances. Every word felt true, every pause deliberate, as if the air around her was holding its breath. Noah watched from the side, proud and moved, knowing that his aunt had poured not just guidance but genuine emotion into the words. Emily noticed Michael's eyes on her, focused, soft, and attentive. She felt a gentle warmth in his gaze, a reminder that he understood more than anyone else ever had. When she finished, the hall was silent for a moment. Then applause began, slow at first, then growing louder. Students and families were clearly moved by the honesty in her voice, by the simplicity and truth of her message. Emily smiled, feeling a mix of relief and quiet pride. This was not just a performance. It was a sharing of her heart in a safe, meaningful way. After the presentation, students and organizers came up to her and Noah, offering congratulations and expressing how touching the message had been. Noah hugged her tightly. "You were amazing, Aunt Emily. I knew you would make it perfect." Emily laughed softly, hugging him back. "We did it together, Noah. You should be proud." As the crowd thinned and volunteers began to clean up, Emily felt a familiar presence behind her. Michael stepped closer, his expression gentle, his eyes kind. "You weren't just reading," he said softly. "You were speaking your truth." Emily looked at him, feeling her heart flutter in a way that surprised her. "I was nervous," she admitted, "but it felt right. More right than I expected." He nodded, smiling faintly. "I could tell. It was sincere, calm, and beautiful. Just like you." For a moment, neither of them spoke, allowing the quiet warmth between them to linger. Emily realized that the walls she had built around her heart were not so rigid anymore. His presence, the gentle connection they shared, reminded her that love could return in ways that were subtle, mature, and respectful without pressure. Without expectation, just with understanding, Michael reached out and lightly touched her arm. "Emily, I know we don't have all the answers yet and life is still complicated. But if you ever wanted to, explore what's possible. I'd like to walk that path with you." Emily's heart raced, a mix of hope, hesitation, and trust rising inside her. She had spent so long avoiding the possibility of love, fearing it would bring pain or disappointment. Yet here was someone she had loved deeply before. Someone who had grown, matured, and returned with sincerity and respect. I don't know what the future holds," she said softly, "but I'm willing to see. I'm willing to take small steps. Michael's smile deepened, gentle and patient. That's all I ask. No rushing, no expectations, just seeing where this goes. Emily felt a quiet peace wash over her. She realized that she had been given a chance not just to help Noah, but to rediscover parts of herself she had neglected. She had been reminded that love could be patient, safe, and gentle, and that sometimes the heart needed only a small nudge to open again. Noah, oblivious to the depth of the conversation happening nearby, tugged at her hand. Come on, Aunt Emily, let's celebrate. Everyone loved it. Emily laughed, feeling light and happy, and she allowed herself to follow him, glancing back once at Michael. Their eyes met, and in that moment, an unspoken understanding passed between them. They didn't need to define the future yet. They only needed to acknowledge the connection that had returned, strong, quiet, and full of promise. As they stepped outside into the cool evening air, Emily took a deep breath. The day had been more than she anticipated. It had been a test of courage, honesty, and emotion. She had faced the audience, shared her truth, and allowed herself to feel again. The past, which she thought was closed, had re-entered her life softly, bringing with it warmth, understanding, and the possibility of new beginnings. Michael walked beside her for a moment, close but giving her space. You did beautifully, he said quietly. I'm proud of you. Emily smiled, feeling the gentle flutter of excitement in her chest. Thank you. That means a lot. For the first time in years, she felt ready to embrace the unknown, to allow love to grow slowly, thoughtfully, and respectfully. And respectfully, she had been given a second chance, not a perfect, instant love story, but a mature, gentle, and hopeful opportunity to reconnect with someone who truly understood her heart. That night, as Emily returned home, she reflected on how a small request from her nephew had brought her to this moment. What started as a simple favor had become a journey of rediscovery, emotional healing, and the quiet rekindling of connection. She realized that life had a way of surprising even the most cautious hearts, and sometimes the most unexpected events could open the doors to beginnings one never imagined. Emily went to bed that night with a lightness she hadn't felt in years. She didn't know exactly what tomorrow would bring. She didn't know where her renewed connection with Michael would lead, but she knew she was ready to find out. Sometimes, she thought, the smallest requests, like helping a nephew with a simple message about love, could change everything. And for Emily, that change felt like the start of something beautiful, calm, and full of quiet hope. The past had returned. The heart had opened, and a new chapter had begun. She was no longer afraid to let life and love surprise her.